The word I want you to think about today is insular. Insular. Insular is the Latin word for isle, or it means by myself. And what this means is you are by yourself more than anybody. If I were to ask you who influences you the most, the answer is you. There's nobody around you more than you. So what that means is, as we spoke about earlier at the program that we did, if you're playing that negative 3-minute video over and over and over and over, that's all you know, right? Now here's what's interesting. The timing for this together is, I think, really good because we've got a couple days before Christmas and everybody's talking about Christmas. You know, the holidays are just right around the corner. We're pretty much in it. But here's what's going to happen. And when we spoke, we really focused on value and belief, right? I want you to notice that something is going to happen to you after Christmas, and you want to really learn to be consciously aware of it. And here's what it is. Now, we know that most people, or the gyms that are out there, the people who go to work out, they get packed in the beginning of January. Why is that? Belief is there, right? And what changes? Value. Value changes. Now, here's what's interesting. Why didn't they go in October if, in fact, they didn't go in October? Because they were so insular and caught up in their thinking. What caused them to change their value and belief in January? Here's what happens. External stimuli. External stimuli influences them so much that their value and belief increases. Where do we get the external stimuli? Well, what happens after Christmas? Right now, everybody's talking about Christmas, right? So around the 27th, 28th, 29th, what's the focus? It's what? New Year's, right? And everybody starts talking about, you can't get away from it. It's on the news. It's on the radio. Everybody's going to talk. What's your New Year's? Hey, how many units are you going to sell, starting this month and so on. And because of that external influence that you hear all of the time, you're immersed in it. You cannot get away from it. What happens is these two things change. So I want you to be thinking around the 27th, 28th, when you start feeling really motivated, I want you to understand what is going on psychologically. What is it that you're buying into, that you're listening to, that's causing you to do this? And if you can do this on December the 29th and December the 30th, why can we not do it in May, June, July? The difference is if we're not doing it, we're allowing the external stimuli to change. And this is why it's so important to be influenced by what you're doing this morning, reading, listening to books, going to programs. So your insular thinking just doesn't get just the same old, but it's influenced to go to the next level. Now, here's what's interesting. We know that not everybody, but most people get really motivated, increase value and belief when it comes to losing weight, quit smoking, whatever the goal is. The next holiday after New Year's is what? Valentine's. When does the people who started going to the gym in January and get all motivated, when does it start dying down? It'll start dying down before, typically, Valentine's. What actually died down? Was it the value or the belief? Who wants to give a stab at it? Value. Whoever said value, 100%. Because anybody can walk into the gym. Everybody believes they can lose and gain weight. How do we know that? Because we've all done it. What actually changed was the value. So what that means, around December 30th, 31st, 28th, whatever, external stimuli is causing us to increase our value. And because nobody starts talking about it anymore around January the 21st, or January the 20th or whatever, the value starts to go down and we don't put ourselves in a position to allow the external stimuli to increase our value. So I want you to really master the ability to figure out and feel what are you doing internally from external stimuli that's causing this to move up and down. And as we shared earlier in the program, when you can learn to manipulate that on your own, it's incredible what you're capable of doing. So here's what I want you to start doing with regards to increasing your sales. I want you to be thinking about, okay, what's going to go differently? What's going to be different in my value system? If the belief is already there, let's assume the belief is already there. what is going to be different that's going to cause me to want to do more to increase my value? And we talked about it a little bit when we were together, but what would influence you, if we can get somebody to share if you'd like to? Let's say you're not totally right there, high value and belief, but you know, after Christmas, once we get all this out of the way, we know we're going to feel that this is my year, this is my year. How many of you, show of hands, have ever said, this is going to be my year, right? We've all said that, okay? We said that because we got so influenced by everybody else talking about their goals. So what will influence you when you hear people talking about their goals around December the 28th or whatever? What's going to cause you to increase your value, to have it go higher? And then what might cause it to decrease? Any thoughts, answers, comments?
Plateau.
Why would you plateau? Great answer. So you're not going to plateau in typically the 1st of January, right? So, and I shared with you earlier, why would we plateau? Because if we're not careful, we'll lose our focus because we don't have that external stimuli. So who's responsible to create that external stimuli? We are. See, what's kind of cool around the end of the year, we're not responsible for that. We hear it everywhere we go. We hear it on the TV. We hear it on the radio. All of our friends and colleagues are going to talk about it. But if you're not careful, you will get that plateau because no one's going to be talking about it as much, and you're not going to hear it as much because you don't control that unless you want to control it by reading more, getting more focused, and so forth. So I want you to be very, very concerned about this. All right, I just wanted to share that with you this morning. I know we don't have a lot of time. So with that being said, do we want to start off with any Q&A about this or anything that we spoke about a couple days ago or whenever it was?
Somebody was asking, when people will receive their books. Was that the question?
When you ran out of one of the books, the one I really wanted.
Is that Susie? Is that Ellie?
No, Laurie. Close.
Lori. That should have been all mailed out. I will look at my information. Everything was mailed the following day. So, Lori, let me check on that for you.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. I've got a note here, and I'm on top of it. I promise. All right, anything else? Okay, so let me ask you this. I want you to write down, what are you averaging for those of you who are in sales? Now, what do we have, managers and some sales, or just managers here? What do we have, Josh?
All management.
All management. Okay, so what kind of a measuring rod do we want to use? How are we going to measure their success over the next month or so? What are we going to use? Because obviously if it's an individual, hey, I'm going to sell 15, now I'm going to sell 20, 25, we can measure that. How do we want to measure that for them?
I think units per salesperson is the best measurement to use.
Okay, so what would that number be now?
Right now?
Yeah.
It's around 10.
Around 10, okay. Josh and I believe, had a conversation about this. I'm assuming that a lot of you, hopefully, when you're working with some of your team, you're kind of getting into their head, because some of you really, you kind of become therapists, right? Yes or yes, yeah? I mean, you're trying to help them. Everybody's got challenges and so forth. So what you want to do is when you work with somebody and you want to get them to believe, and you tell them you really have to believe that you can do this. Now, understand this. If they don't attain the goal, I repeat, do not assume they don't believe. We also have to figure out, again, we're going back to value again. So what we have to figure out now, okay, so and you can ask a person on a scale of 1 to 10, and I would have a conversation with somebody on this. Be honest with me on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do you believe you could take your 10 to a 15? That's 50%, right? So that's 50%. And if they hesitate, well, yeah, I think I can do it. That hesitation shows there's a lack of belief there. You need to catch that, okay? You're going to look for that in their physiology and bring it to their attention. Just say, hey, I noticed you had a little bit of a pause there. Do you really, really believe that? Or are you really at a 7? Or do you really think you're at a 10? Okay, I'll be honest. I think I'm about a 7. All right, you're at a 7. Great. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the level of importance of you increasing 50%? And even as a team, what's the level of importance this is to you? Now, most people are going to say a 10, but that's BS. Remember that. The reason it's BS, if in fact it is, it's because the only way to know what your value is by not your words, but by your what? Actions. That's it, okay? So then, if you have a conversation and a relationship with somebody that's working underneath you, and you have a conversation and you say, okay, if you had incredibly high value, let me share with you what people do that have high belief and high value. In fact, what I would do, I would make a list. I would take some time. If you have value on increasing your units, right? If you have value, I would take some time and I would write down, I would print it out, and I would show it to somebody. Here's what somebody does who does 50 units a month or 30. Their belief is so. Their value is here's what they do to show they value and believe this. They are always on the phone. They're never taking 1 hour lunches. They bring their lunch to the office because they don't have time. All these little things, write them down, and then you will know and you will prove that you have value on this and belief on this because you're doing these specific things. Now, everybody does things a little bit differently, but you understand the principle. So if you have a list of these things and you share this list with those that are working underneath you, then they understand what it is that they have to do to show they have value and belief. Again, it's like the fourth quarter with 2 minutes and we're tied. What do we do different? And why football teams don't do this is beyond me. So what do we do different? We huddle faster. So on the first quarter, first time out, let's huddle faster. What kind of result would we get? We don't talk so slow. We don't sit there and talk at the water cooler, if you will, for hours. And then if you can take a person and say, look, let's try to do this for 1 week solid and pretend it's the end of the month and you're out of money, what are you going to do differently? So let me ask you, what would be some of the things that you would do on that list specifically? Now, we're not talking at home. We talked about that earlier. You'd wake up earlier. But we're talking about specific things here in the office at the store that they would need to do. Walk me through some of those things. So number one, I'll start one off. Are you on your phone doing video games or playing something else or being on social media when you should? Oh, by the way, check this out. I just heard this yesterday. If a person has Netflix, they say the average person that has a Netflix subscription spends 4.5 days out of the year scrolling to find out what they want to watch. That is mind-boggling to me. All right, so what would be some of the things that you would expect them to do? Let's write some of them down.
Make more phone calls. Knock out their overdue tasks.
Okay, so let's do the calls. Let's put a number beside it. I know when I'm in beast mode, right? I'm doing 100 calls a day. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed, you probably notice it now more so because I'm talking about it. My right ear is closer to my head than my left ear, and I kid you not, and it's not a birth defect. Years ago when we had like regular phones, I literally made so many phone calls, over 100 every single day, because I knew numbers are so important that it literally pushed my ear closer to my head. I kid you not, okay? I need to probably get surgery and have the other one put there. I don't know what. So give me a number. What would be a reason? Now, I don't even want reasonable. Let's go a little bit above reasonable. What would be a good number that they should be using?
Andres, you pick. 25.
How many?
40.
I would say a minimum of 40. A minimum of 40. What was the next thing? Somebody said overdue tasks?
Yeah, a CRM tool.
CRM tool. Ooh, yeah. Get people to learn to be obsessed with unfinished business. So here's what I tell them. Are you saying, Josh, when they have something done, they're supposed to, after they're done, put it in their CRM?
No, it's the CRM activates and tells them to make unsold follow-up calls, sold follow-up calls on a certain timeline, birthday calls, like you name it, anniversary calls.
Got it. So if they don't do them, I have an expression that I use with some of my team. And I do it in the cockpit in the airplane as well. It's called wiping your butt. When you go to the bathroom and you're done, done means you've wiped your butt. All right? So the task is not done until you've wiped your butt. So if you want to use that as a joke and say, look, hey, if you don't do what's in the CRM, you haven't wiped your butt. So you joke around and say, hey, have you wiped your butt today? Your butt's, I looked at your CRM and it's smelly over here. It's really bad. So focus on that. Now, I would have a task list. Now, remember, why are they not doing this if they're not doing it and they believe? They're what's not high enough?
They don't have value.
They don't have value. So Johnny, Bobby, Betty, please don't say that you have a high value. So right now, let's be honest with ourselves because we can't change what we don't acknowledge. We cannot honestly put a 10 there because if we put a 10 there, we would be doing all these things. So right now, I think I'm going to have to give you or ask them, what do you think you should give yourself? You're probably going to be at a 6 or a 7. So if you want to make the money that you want to make and you want to have the lifestyle and do more and have more for your family, we've got to get this higher. There's no way you're going to get this without doing this. Does that make sense, everybody? Everybody with me on that? All right? And it's very true. I mean, it's all about the ability to take action. Now, I also like to encourage people, and we go back to the when my feelings are not in harmony with my goals, ignore my feelings. Remember, you don't have to do this and smile. I would rather you smile and be happy about it, but if you've had a crappy day or whatever, just go through the motions. Of course, if you get on the phone call, make sure you're pretending to smile because sometimes that's what you're going to have to do. But make sure they go through the motions, and I think sometimes people feel they have to feel excited and motivated to take specific actions. Look at somebody who's running a 26.2 marathon. They are not on the 15th mile smiling. They are crying, they're sweating, they're in pain, they're starved. Do whatever it takes. What's the next thing, Josh, or anybody else?
Asking for referrals on every deal.
Okay. Referrals. That reminds me, Josh, I'm going to hit you up again and bear with me. By the end of the day, how about the end of the noon, Josh, can I get that 3-way text?
Yes.
So notice what I'm going to ask Josh. Josh, do me a favor. Is there anybody you can introduce me to? Change the word referral to introduce. Try that. I think introduce kind of seems a little bit more professional, and I use that. So I say, hey, is there anybody that you might be able to introduce me to that you think might sometime soon or in the future, you know, be looking for a car, et cetera, et cetera? Would you be able to 3-way text me in, give me their phone number or whatnot? Referrals. Now, one of the things that I would do, I would suggest, Josh, and I don't think I did it with you because I had so much going on when I came and saw you, but I would print up a small card or a piece of paper, and when somebody comes to you, I would hand it to them and ask them, or something like this, or on the phone, and say, before you leave here today, would you be able to introduce me, and have it in your pocket, have 3 or 5 or 6 or 10 of them in your pocket. You pull it out and you have a pen and paper and you're ready to write it down. Or you hand it to them and have them ready to write it down right now. You've got to be so proactive. And I believe the studies show that up to 40 to 60% of your referrals can convert to leads. That is huge. Anything else?
I think that's enough to start on. We can just do those things
Okay.
well. It'll make a big difference.
And we're good on the time right now. So let's do these things. I'm going to take a picture of this. If somebody wants to take a screenshot, if you haven't written it down, and we'll meet again sometime in January and see how these are going. But everybody, make sure this is an intentional, specific thing that you spend time. Write it down. Put a number beside it, like you're doing an evaluation. If you really want to bring these numbers up, have an evaluation once a week on something like this. It will change your game, because what will happen when they see that you feel and they've agreed that their number of value system is about a 6 or a 7, and they know they have to have a 10 to make things happen, they'll see that number and they'll try to do more to get that 10, and it'll work for you as well. All right, Josh, I'm going to wrap up. If you want to wrap up with anything else at the end here, we're good to go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on this morning and joining the team, giving us a little extra pep in our stuff. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, keep that value and belief high. Make sure you're consciously aware of all the time when it goes up, when it goes down, and anything and everything you can do to make sure you can maintain it and control it. I'm out of here. We'll see you till next time. Have a great, safe holiday, everybody.